Okay, well, good morning and welcome to our third Mentori live stream event, which is sponsored by HP and TechData. So thank you, first of all, to our sponsors for helping us to put today's event on. And thank you to all of our partners who are here in the room with us. We are currently in Westminster in London. We have 25 UK Mentori partners in the room with us. And we also have hundreds of partners who are joining us online on today's live stream. We have partners that are dialing in from Spain, from France, from Turkey, from Italy, from Romania. We have partners from all over Europe who have dialed in to learn how you can grow a better MSP business with our speakers and experts today. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Fiona Chalice and I'm going to be your host for the program today, and I'm also the founder of the Mentori program. And I'm delighted for today's event because this is now the second year anniversary of the Mentori program. So I think a round of applause for all of our partners in this room who have been with us for 2 years. And this evening, after this daytime event, we will be having an awards ceremony and we will be recognising some of the UK partners in the room today for their outstanding performance from implementing everything that we have given you in the Mentori programme to help you to grow your business. So see who the winners are in the room later on. So to start with, we have 4 key speakers who are here to help you today on the programme. Now, on the previous live stream events, we have really focused more on how do you put proper systems, processes, how do you get proper business plans, and how do you recruit the right kind of people into your business. Today's session is actually slightly different to the previous sessions because today we are focusing on you, the leader of the business. We have leadership experts, we have recruitment experts, we have culture experts, all here to help you as the leader of your MSP business to help you grow a better and more profitable business for the future. So our first speaker that we are going to have up is Mark Matthews. Now, Mark Matthews is better known as the Crisp Guy, and you will find out in a moment why he is known as the Crisp Guy. He's also one of the funniest men I have ever met, not just yet. He's one of the funniest men that I have ever met, and he is going to be sharing some really key leadership strategies with you today on how you can fall back in love with your business. Our second speaker is a recruitment specialist, Mark Summer. Now, Mark is actually a recruitment specialist in the IT industry. And we all know when you're running a business, recruitment and people can sometimes be one of the biggest challenges that we have in our businesses. So Mark is going to share with you the 7 key traits of recruiting successful IT salespeople. The third speaker we have is Michael Anderson. Now, Michael's not allowed to stand beside me today because he's very tall and I'm very small. So Michael is actually going to be sharing with you some key leadership strategies as to how you can quickly scale your business. He's a previous owner of 3 software companies, so he's had many times to manage and lead people, and he's going to be sharing his experience with you. And then our last speaker is Mark Robb. Now, Mark is actually a culture and human behaviour expert, and Mark's going to be sharing how do you get your people to think and act service. Now, this is a really important session, especially if we have resellers and VARs in the room or resellers and VARs online who are kind of moving from that product-focused or transactional type sales team, and you're now getting them to move into becoming more of a service-orientated team. So Mark is going to share with you how do you get your people to think and act more service. So there are the sessions that we have set up for you today. Same as always, if you are online, just dial into the sessions that you want to attend. But what I would ask you to do is to share this link. So the link here that you see on the screen, and Tony, if we can put this in the chat box as well, the link. Please share this link with all of the people in your office, with your colleagues, share it online. Any sessions that you attend that you think you have a colleague or a friend who would benefit from seeing the session, please do share this link and they will be able to join the live stream as well. As always, please do get involved. Obviously, in the room, it's easier for you guys to ask questions. Tony, do we have mics? Do we have mics in the room? Okay, so if you want to ask a question to the speaker, if you could just make sure that you grab one of the mics, because then we can hear you clearly on the camera, and the online audience can also hear the questions that you've asked. And if you're online, please enter your questions into the chat box, and then I'll ask the question on your behalf. So without further ado, please enjoy the session, do get engaged, there's loads of value coming today, and please do keep asking lots of questions. So I'm going to pass over now to our first speaker, one of the funniest men I've met, Mark Matthews, who's from ATG, and he's going to be sharing his crisp packet story with you. So welcome to Mark. All right.
Well, that's one hell of a build-up, and she obviously hasn't met many men in her life, because I'm certainly not one of the most funny men out there, definitely. So if you're looking for a comedy sketch, I don't personally think my life has been a comedy sketch, but we'll find out in an hour or so. So, let's just say a little bit about me for those that are obviously looking online and that are in the audience today. So I'm 52. I became a granddad a few weeks ago by my middle daughter. And I've run an MSP since January the 9th, 1989. So I'm now into 31 years of being an MSP and running a business. We're about 17 staff at this moment in time. We're growing. I'm on a few partner advisory here. I'm an exec at Network Group. So I get involved in quite a lot of the industry. So as I say, I've been running ATG since 1989, and let's just say I had my fair share of staff problems. So I won't ask anybody to get involved today, other than to maybe put their hands up, and if they want to share something, they can do. But who in the room has potentially had staff problems? Could you just show of hands? Wow, that's unanimous. So obviously, those that are on that are streaming, I can't see you putting your hands up, but I'm sure you are, and I'm sure you'd like. Who in effect would not like to have some staff problems? I would have thought the same thing. Everybody would put their hands up that we don't want staff problems. So, why am I called the crisp guy? Well, one day I turned up at work, and there was a packet of crisps scruntled up outside my office door and on the floor. This is the packet of crisps. That isn't, I've eaten another bag of crisps just for effect there, but this pack of crisps is outside my door. And bearing in mind, this was about 6 years ago. The IT industry was great. Brexit hadn't come about yet. Everything was going really well. But I walked up and I got this pack of crisps outside my door, and I don't know why this day, instead of picking it up, I decided I'm not going to pick it up. I'm just going to leave it there. Let's see how long it takes the staff to pick it up. So I walked past it, walked up to my office, left it. I was in early that day, so everybody had got to come in after me, so I thought they'd see it, and one of them would pick it up and put it in the bin. Well, to my surprise, they didn't. They didn't put it in the bin. So I thought, oh, Sodom, I'm leaving it. So I left it, and we've actually got a roller shutter in front of here, so it couldn't get blown away overnight or anything. So I left it there, and I got in the next day, and I deliberately come in early again. I thought I'd leave it, walk to my office. 17 people walked past it. Didn't bother with it. I thought we got great culture in the business. I thought everything was flying. We were earning money. Life was good. Crisp packet was still there. Same night, went home, spoke to my wife, and said, there's this crisp packet outside the office. Now, actually, she does a bit of cleaning for us. She comes in a couple of times a week, cleans the offices. She said, oh, I'll just pick it up. I went, don't you bloody pick that crisp packet up. You leave it there. They need to pick it up. One of them will notice it and pick it up. Well, I'm ashamed to say that this went on for 5 weeks. This crisp packet stuck outside my door for 5 weeks, and every single day I came into work, and the focus of me wasn't on customers or finance or new products or vendors, it was just about this bloody crisp packet. It almost took over my life. And I was coming home miserable and speaking to my wife and saying, it's still there. Well, just pick it up. Come on, just pick the bloody thing up. Let's move on with your life now. At the same time, I was having a house built. And at times I got 40-odd builders on this site building this house. The problem is I used to fall out with all the builders. So builders would turn up to the house and they'd do the work and I'd fall out with them and I'd get upset. The same as I was getting upset with the staff at work. But I couldn't quite work out, I hadn't worked out yet what the issue was. Because I'm sure that you guys, you get upset with your staff at work. It's one of the things that upsets us if one of the distribution companies, we bought a product off them and we paid for a 9 a.m. delivery, and at 9:10 the product hasn't turned up because whatever reason, why aren't my staff on the phone to whoever the distribution is to get find out where the courier is to deliver the product? Why, when they're having a cup of tea in our break room and they're making a cup of tea, why do they get the tea bag and seem to throw it up the wall first before it goes in the bin? And I see some people nodding now because that's quite why do they leave I'm not particularly the most tidy person in the world, but why do they leave their Crocs in the sink over all weekend so they can grow mould on them? Why, when we've got a backup failure that's happened last night, why wasn't they on it at 9:05 in the morning or as soon as the guys were in, phoning the customer and sorting it out? Why are they leaving it till later on in the day when potentially that backup could cause an issue? Why wasn't they doing it? Because I would do it, so why wouldn't they? And I'm sure there's lots of things that you guys online and in this room will think about your staff and go, I can't believe why don't they just do that? It's not rocket science. Why don't they just pick the crisp packet up? Why can't they, if my wife's not in to clean one week, why don't they just go and empty the bins themselves? And here's one for one person in the room who'll smile, the toilet roll holder. Why, when the toilet roll is empty, why don't they just change it? That was one for you. Yeah? Because he's got a bit of an obsession with Phil has with toilet roll holders. Why don't they just do that? Because I would. And I'm looking at my staff, the same as I'm looking at my builders as, actually, they know what I know. Why wouldn't they just do that basic stuff? Why, when I'm at home and the builder is painting this wood here at the side of this fireplace, why doesn't he mask this up first and put a sheet on the floor rather than let it drip on the floor and put paint on the side? Why, when they're painting a plug socket, why don't they take the plug socket off the wall, paint behind it, then screw it back on afterwards? And I can see you smiling there because maybe that's happened to you at some time. Why, when they're fitting a row of ceiling lights, why don't they put them in a straight line? That's obvious, isn't it? Why does it go along and then one kinks off? I shouldn't have to tell them that because they've got common sense, haven't they? So all this was going on. I've got work and the crisp packet that was still doing my head in. I've got builders at home that are not putting dust sheets down, that are fitting lights in the wrong way, that are just doing the most ridiculous things. I've got staff members that are not emptying a sink or chasing the courier or any of those hundreds of things that we could all think of. And it was so frustrating. And outwards, I'm looking at them and saying, that's their fault. That's them. It's not me because I'd do it. Why the hell wouldn't they? My wife's still going mad at me because I had a situation at home where I come home one day and a guy had went to be fitting me an ensuite door. And he fitted the door and the door hit the toilet as you opened it. Whereas if he'd have fit it this way, hung it this way, it would have been perfect. So, of course, I sacked that builder, that carpenter. And my wife's, I didn't realise at the time, head in hands going, oh, my God, here's another one. We're running out of builders in the area. We only live in a village. There's only so many of us that will deal with us. So to add that with what was happening at work, as an entrepreneur, we tend never to shut down. We never switch off. We might leave work at 3 o'clock or 4 or whatever the time might be, even 7 o'clock, but we're still thinking all night. And this one particular night, I was lying in bed, and I think I woke up in a sweat at 4 o'clock in the morning going, bolt upright, oh, I know what the problem is. Oh my God, I didn't realise that. It's took me 25 years to work it out. The problem's me. Oh God, what am I going to do about that then? How am I going to go, I'm falling out with the builders and I'm falling out with staff and the staff are upsetting me. The bloody crisp packet is still outside my office. And it's me all along, all these years I've been bitter and twisted at builders and my staff. And actually, it's me that's the problem. Wow, what am I going to do about it? So, every month at work, we have all the guys can get together and choose what they want to eat. They can choose what food they want to eat, I think it's every Friday we have it. They choose what food they want, we'll order it in, and we have a bit of a company meeting. At the time, there wasn't much going on in the company meeting. We give them the information that we wanted, and that was about it. And they'd eat their free meal. They'd always have, 10 starters and 4 mains and fillet steak each, but that's what we'd have at the time. I can see a few of you laughing because I'm sure some of your staff might do the same. So why have I got a door on the screen? Well, because of the incident with the toilet door, I came up with, how can I explain to people that it's my fault? And this is a bit left field, so bear with me, because my staff looked at me like I was a bit weird when I came up with this idea. So I've got everybody in the same room, similar to as we are now, and we've ordered Thai food this week, and they're sitting there eating the food, and I stopped and I said, guys, I need you to all do me a favour. Can you go and grab me a pen and paper? Right, okay. You could see them looking, what's Matthews on about now? Where's he going with this? Look, guys, I need to apologise to you for something. Well, of course, that got their attention because in 25 years, I'd never apologised for anything. I don't think I'd ever apologise to anybody for anything. Certainly not builders and staff. I was the boss in both places. So I says to him, look, in our old tech room, we had a doorway that you could walk through when you were carrying your servers or PCs that you were building. And it didn't have a door on there, so it was an empty doorway. You could just walk through, there was no door, there was no swinging door, so you didn't have to put the stuff down or kick the door. So I said to everybody, grab a pen and paper, and what I want you to do is, and I've put a door up here just so you understand what a door is. A door frame is. I did this talk recently in Kansas, and they had an issue with knowing what that was. So, we've got a door frame. I want you to draw a door that goes in that frame. All the attributes that door will need in that room, please draw a door. And they're looking at me going, what? Please, humour me. Just draw a door, would you? With everything it needs. I said, I'll give you 5 minutes. Crack on with it, get on. And of course, they're looking really, really suspicious at me now. But anyway, they get the pens and the paper and they draw it. And you can do this mentally yourself. You can imagine what a door goes in there. We all know what a door looks like. We all know what attributes a door has. So I then said, is everybody finished? Yeah, everybody's finished. Who's used a pine door? Had 3 hands go up. Who's used an oak door? Another 4 or 5 hands go up. Who's used a painted door? Another 2 or 3. Who's used one with a glass panel in? 5 or 6. Who's used 2 gold hinges or brass hinges? Who's used 3 hinges? Different hands, going up all the time. Who's used silver hinges? Who's used round knobs? Silver? Nobody. Who's used gold? Oh, 2. Who's used a handle gold? Who's used a handle silver? You see where I'm going with this? Who's got the door opening this way? 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 And that's when the penny dropped for them, that everybody in the room was putting their hands up at different times. All I'd asked them to do was something really simple. fit a door in that doorway, which in my mind, they could have looked at the other doors that were in the room and drawn exactly as that. But they didn't. They all did something totally different. Like my builders at home did something totally different when I didn't tell them to put the lights in a straight line, or to unscrew the wall socket off and paint behind it, then screw it back on, or put sheets down to stop the paint going on the oak floor. So you can imagine what confusion it can cause when it's a server install, or we want to secure that company, or we want to chase that delivery at 9 o'clock in the morning, not 3 in the afternoon, or we need to change that toilet roll holder because we might have customers going into the toilet. And do we want them to think that we can't even remember to change a toilet roll holder when we're looking after their servers and their support? We're meant to be really professional, so let's act professional. But it was my fault because I hadn't explained to them what good looked like. I thought that everybody knew what I knew. And of course we don't. Because actually the door I wanted was this door. Which of course nobody would know that other than me. And I didn't tell them. That's the door I wanted. And they were all giving different answers of what they were going to fit. So, this is when I realised that it was all my fault. Now, I've never really apologised for anything, as I said earlier on, for a long time. I've had a business since I was 22. Done really well out of it, out of the year, so I was pretty cocksure, should we say. So this was a really humbling process for me, that actually, it's my fault. Wow, I've never been wrong. And to look back over your life and go, actually, for the last 25 years, you have been wrong and you could have been so much better and bigger and or whatever I wanted to be. But because I could only see it was their fault. So what I needed to do is I needed to have a set of guiding principles, a set of structures that would explain, not necessarily to take a toilet roll holder off, because that's, change a toilet roll, because we don't need a process for that. That's a bit lame. That's a 2-second thing to explain to somebody in a Simon Sinek why they need to be doing that, why they need to keep the office tidy, that sort of thing. And the impact to a customer that if they can't have their delivery at 10:10 or 9:10 in the morning. So where do I start? I started to look around and started to read a few books. I'd never really read any books in my life before. Started to look around and think, right, what do I need to do? Where am I going to get these guiding principles from? Because I don't do them. I just sort of do them naturally. It's in me. I'm not even sure I know half the time what I do. It just sort of happens and just sort of flows. And being in a couple of other peer groups, that's how a lot of entrepreneurs think. So what was the first thing that I really needed to get nailed down? And I decided it was my core values. Now, I'd always thought I'd got a set of values, but I'd never written them down. And I suppose, like you guys, you've been in lots of offices and rooms when you've been around, and you've seen core values printed on the wall. I'm sure you've been. Has anybody seen those when they're in offices? Anybody? Yeah? So people have seen core values printed on the wall. The problem with core values that are printed on the wall, and this is just an example. I mean, to be fair, you should never have integrity and honesty and trustworthy, because you should never employ anybody in your business that didn't have integrity, wasn't honest, and wasn't trustworthy. So you shouldn't really have them as your founding principles. They're permission to play and be in the room to start off with. But I go into lots of businesses and they have these printed on the wall. And the main reason they have them on the wall is because the boss, the owner, really wants to get more out of his staff. He wants them to be honest. He's got no other way of working out how to get them to be honest, but he thinks if he prints them on the wall and explains them, these are the values we're going to live by, which they're all very aspirational. There's no real substance behind them. And really, I'd have to say the only thing they do is they become transparent. They sit there on the wall and they'll be there a few days, a couple of weeks later, they've been forgotten about and they're just a bit of artwork that sits on the wall. And to give some examples for that of living values, and of course, everybody's values that's in the room or that are out online, we've all got a set of values. Well, we should do, but we've all got a set of values in us that actually these could fit in with all of our businesses. So communication, respect, integrity and excellence. They sound great values to have. I mean, I think you should, respect probably isn't one either, because you should respect naturally other people. You shouldn't have to want people to respect people. And integrity, the same thing. You should have integrity anyway. But, so they sound pretty good values, don't they, for anybody to have? They're actually Enron's. Well, Enron went bump for God knows how many million. It might even have been billion. And this chap got 165 years. So he wasn't necessarily living by his values. So how can he preach about his values if he wasn't to his staff? So another one a little bit closer to home is, again, we could all take these now, put our logo around it, put them on our wall and say, these are our values. We care, we achieve together, we improve, we deliver. And they actually proudly say in biggest letters, live in our values. They're Carillions. So they had 1 billion of debt. The owners took 4 million out in pension contributions before it went bump. And 20,000 people lost their jobs. Do you think that those values the directors of that company were living? And if you go and read about them online, it's absolutely atrocious that what they did to that company. They weren't living those values online. So this is another, and these obviously are massive companies. But most in the IT world are relatively small companies in the scheme of this size business. So we can actually have a real impact and live our lives and live our business based around our values. It's a lot easier because we haven't got 20,000 employees. So what I wanted to do today was go through 10 steps that I've got that are really, really easy to enable you to create your own values that already exist in your business. They're already there today. They're not your values that you're going to go back to your staff and say, these are my values. I'm sticking these on the wall. We're going to live by these now, guys. Because they're not their values. They have to be the business values. You can have your personal values, and they can be that you sit and you judge what you're going to do personally. But as a business, the business should have its own set of values. And there's a really easy way to do it. These are the actual pictures of when we did ours 4 years ago now. So, off-site is preferential. We don't get disturbed at work anyway. This is an office that we've got at work, our boardroom. We don't get disturbed at work, but if you're going to get calls, if you're the sort of owner or management team that gets calls, get out of the business. Go and hire a room at Regis or wherever else for we have our board meetings off-site now, and it's £100 for the room. Go and do that. Go and spend a day off-site. So set aside 2 hours. And what I want you to do is think of your current staff that you've got. And think that if you were to take 3 of the members of staff, well, let's start with 1, that if you multiplied that member of staff, if you were to put them in a machine that could expand them, that could duplicate them, it would take your business stratospheric. And write their name down. And think however many members of your company that you've got. And each of your management team really should think of 3. So think of three members. I think I didn't say earlier on that actually the slides are going to be available later. So if you email Fiona, she'll send them off to you. So there's no real reason to make notes unless you really want to. So each of the management team have got to think of 3 members of staff. If you can think of 3. I have had it where people can't think of 3 members of staff that if they multiplied them, it would take the business stratospheric. So we almost have somebody in our business that's the best accountant, the best sales guy, the best engineer. Duplicating. Write them on a board. So this was actually ours. So this is me, this is Chris, my technical director, this is Steve, my security guy, and this is David, my FD. These are the names we wrote down at the time. And the funny thing is so I thought Kate, if you multiply Kate, and some of you in the room know Kate, she's absolutely stunning. She's really good. David C is the FD, and Chris is operations. And we all had to do that and write them on a board. Now, the funny thing is David, my FD, wrote my name down. And at the time, I was like, why aren't these? Because surely you want to duplicate me. Because I'm brilliant. I found out later he was only sucking up to me. He was only sucking up and he felt obliged to write my name down. Because I'm the boss. And some of you will realise that your employees don't necessarily tell you the truth all of the time. You have to bear in mind this is before we'd worked our values out. They would now. But at the time, I remember being upset that only he had wrote my name down. Because that's how ego-driven I was at the time. So once you've got your 3 names down of your 3 people, what we now need to do is, why did I write Kate down? There's a reason. Why did I write Dave? Why did Chris put Tom? Why did Steve write Adam? Etc., etc. And we'll come up with a big list of reasons why we put those people onto the sheet in the first place. There's got to be a reason why that person that you're thinking of now, you'd put them on the list. Why would you put them there? Write those reasons down. And try not to use because they're honest, or they've got integrity, or they're a hard worker. Because, as I said, they're not really values that someone's a hard worker. If they're working for you, that should be natural. They're a hard worker. They've got integrity. You should never employ anybody that wasn't honest, so why do you need it as a value? This was ours, so and I found this quite hard to come up with the words, the terminology. So you can go online and there's lots of, you type company core values in, there's tons of word clouds out there that you can go and find the details and you can look and go, right, what does Kate actually have? What does it mean? Because that's not necessarily how my brain worked. Other people, the FD and the operations guy, they're full of things because they're just into detail all the time. So this was ours. So we got, Kate shows a problem. She's caring, helpful, happy, honest, teamwork. She's on time. Work ethic, respectful. She's fair. Somebody else wrote respectful. Development. Not cynical for Adam. Customer focused. I'm not going to read them all out because you can see. You end up with a huge amount of characteristics. Now, if you think about it, your values have got to be in there now because we've took a member of staff that if we multiplied them would take your business stratospheric, would be brilliant for the business. And then we've wrote why we put them on that list in the first place. So what we now need to do in this 2-hour meeting is we need to debate that big list down because the goal is to get it between 3 and 7 values. We need to get that huge list to between 3 and 7. And you'll have some duplicates on there. So, we got respectful and respectful. So you cross these out. And eventually you get down to, I think the first cull that we did, we got down to 20. So this was our first round of culling. And we ended up here with customer focus, passion, caring, hunger, listener, wants the best, and humility, decisive, ethical, integrity, helpful, never say no, can do, respectful, committed, fun, creative. Well, then we got to a bit of a blockage then, because how do we get these 22 or whatever's up there down now? We can't have 22 values, that's silly. So everybody had a different coloured pen, and they put the one down that more resonated to them. The value that they, in their own personal values, resonated to those. So we went from the first round to this round. So we had humility, fun, wants the best, can do, creative. Can't read that one. Professional, integrity. Wants the best was for the customer, company and for themselves. And then we left that. And then because we'd done the pen thing, we then went with initials to which ones we liked, which ones the ones that actually we could really get behind and we felt really served our purpose as a business. So now we have our list of core values in effect. we've gone and put a star after them here. I didn't say that. So we've gone and put a star. And as you see, we had integrity at the time. It's not one of ours now, but we had integrity at our second cull. And me being a visionary and a business owner, I wanted to go running straight to the staff and go, oh, I've got our values, it's took me 25 years, here they are, right, we're going to start living by them tomorrow, come on. Actually, not tomorrow, today. Not today, in 10 minutes' time. But one thing you've got to do is you've got to leave those values festering, mulling over in your brain for about 4 weeks. And I think we left them for 4 weeks, and it was really hard for me. It wasn't for the other guys, but for me it was, because come on, let's do it. We've done it now. We've spent the 2 hours. We've got our values. Come on, let's crack on. So we then met up again and went, right, what do we need to do? We need to cull those down. What are we happy with? So we had a real discussion and debate to which ones we're happy with. So we got round from the 7 to 4, and these ended up our 4. Good to work with. They've got a positive attitude. They want the best for themselves and the company, and think like a customer. Just been handed a microphone. No, okay. Right. Think like a customer. I still wanted to go and run to the staff and tell them what it is now we've decided on it. But to make them so they're not my values that I've just put it on the wall, or our owner's values, or the other director's values, you've really got to find supporting examples of where you've seen those values in action in the business. Because otherwise you're just telling somebody, oh, one of our values is positive attitude. It means nothing to them. So you've got to find as many supporting examples as you can that you've seen those values in operation in the business. So I've got to go, right, when have I seen anybody in the company think like a customer? Wow, okay. And start writing them down. Because that's where the power of this will come from. So, we came up with good to work with. And I'll cut to the chase, it means not a knob. Because everybody really knows what a knob is. You know, that person you sit next to at work that is just you wouldn't go for a drink with them, you wouldn't go out with them. So for us, good to work with means, to sum it up, you could say, not a knob. More than being a team player. Surround yourself with good people and you improve yourself. And then one of the examples, and we ended up with 10 of each of these for each value. A tricky problem with a new client, a solution was designed together with the leadership, tech, sales and consultancy. Teams working together to win the deal. That was an example of that being that good to work with in operation. A positive attitude. Displaying a can-do attitude. How can we make this work rather than this will never work? David Bennington, who's a third-line techie, saying on a Friday afternoon, right, it's 5 to 5. I've got 2 tickets to go, come on, let's go. I.e., let's get them done. Not, oh, it's 5 to 5, come on, let's go. I mean, as a business owner, how much do you want to have your guys saying that? Wow, to think my guys are saying that is absolutely brilliant. You know, without me being there and pushing them and having to bash them with a stick to get them to do stuff. He's going, it's 5 to 5, he's got 2 tickets, let's get that finished before the weekend. Wow. And as I say, we ended up with about 10 of these per value. Wants the best. So they want themselves to be the best that they can be. So an example is, Kate, who I mentioned earlier on, went out and straight off her own back, so she went and did a Prince 2 foundation and practitioners course because she saw we were doing more project management, and she went and got a loan for it herself. She never told us anything about it until she came in and showed us the certificates. Wow. I'm used to people going, no, you give me the money and I'll go and do the course. And then if I fail it, you still pay for me to do it again. So when I heard this, I didn't even know she'd done this. Obviously, when I heard this, we paid for the course offer. We didn't want her having a loan to do it, but that's something that she did. And we had 10 other examples. As I say, because that's where the power comes from. So our biggest mantra in our business is, if there's any problem, put yourselves... So if a customer's phoning up with a problem, pretend you're the customer. What would you want to happen? That's the answer. If you do that, that's what we do. Simple as that. Nobody could get into any trouble for anything. There'd be never any issues. If the customer's not happy, make them happy. Put yourselves in their shoes. So an example for that was Harry speaking to a customer outside of hours so he could get some maintenance done on his computer. So he based it around the customer, not himself. So he put himself out so the customer didn't have to be put out. Again, really brilliant thing to do. Oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong one. Right, so let's have just a quick recap. We've had 3 people that we're going to, if we maximise them and multiply them, they would take this business through the roof. We've then put why we want them, or why we think they could be on the list in the first place. Why have we got Kate in accounts? Why, if we've duplicated her and multiplied her, would she take this business to the next level? Then we've wrote the reasons. We've then narrowed those reasons down to a select 4 or 5. And then from that, we've seen where those examples, those values have been in the business. And we've got 10 supporting examples for each one of the future values that we're going to say. So they're not just my values that I'm sticking on the wall. These are the business's values because we can prove where they came from. So you then organise a company meeting. And this is an awful photo, but this was the actual company meeting at the time. And we explained to the staff that this is how we've come up with the values. And we never had any printed on the wall. But this was following on from the crisp packet and the hang in the door episode. So they were already now getting used to us having change in the business. So we then presented them to the business and then went through every one of the leading examples of why these are the values. So why Kate with the Prince 2? Why Harry with staying over at night? Why David with his 5 to 5? Now, this virtually went round everybody in the business and everybody roughly had multiple things said about them. The employees' faces, when a value was put on the board and then they were shown to be seen to be living that value, the look on their faces was priceless. Because they had now got buy-in, they had got now involvement in it. They could see where they played a part in it. And they could see where other people had played a part, which gives them, in a Simon Sinek way, why they need to live the values. And they're not now the boss's aspirations, which I have to say a lot of values are that are written on the wall. Now you've got your values. The biggest problem is, and I can remember times in the past where, even though we didn't have values, I might not have lived to them if I did have the values. The problem is the boss, if something goes wrong, something happens and it's going to cost the boss money, suddenly the values go out the window. So, as an example, I've got a hard drive here. And this is a customer's hard drive. It's not, but let's just say it is for now. It's a customer's hard drive with all of their backup data on. It's got every single thing that they've got on it. They've got no other backup other than this. And, oh, I walked past it and I dropped it. It's hit the floor. If you can't phone that customer up and tell the customer the truth, live into your values, so I'm choosing a value here, think like a customer. If you can't phone the customer up and say, I'm really sorry, Mr. Customer, we've lost all your data, then I'd argue that your value of think like a customer isn't a value because you can't live to it. And the first time that you don't live to those values, neither will your staff. So even if you've got to take one for the team, if you don't live to the values that you've chose, they're worthless. You might as well have just stuck your values just up on the wall. And I can see a few people nodding, and I can see a few people thinking, I don't know if I could do that. Then if you can't do that, go and choose other values. Which I know as a business owner, 20 odd years ago, if I'd have dropped a hard drive on the floor, maybe I didn't drop it on the floor. I didn't, by the way. But if you can't, when that hits the deck and you've lost all the data, phone the customer up, those values are worthless, because you'll have lost any credibility with your staff, because they will see that you will change the values to suit your needs. And as soon as you do that, you've lost them. They will never change that toilet roll. They will never not throw the tea bag in the bin. They'll never chase that delivery, because they'll know you don't do it. You've got to lead by example. Now, a few of you might be thinking, well, I couldn't do that. And that's a bit, living by values, that's a bit, isn't that a bit American? It's a bit Simon Sinek, Marcus Buckingham. It's a bit, you know, all these new age people that are coming out now spouting that we've got to be different and look after our staff and train them and treat them better and everything. Why can't they just come to work and do their job and go home and leave me? So I'm just going to give you some examples. So, yeah, you need laugh. So I turned up at work one day. This was, I think, well, it was in October, because it was for Halloween. So I turned up for work one day, and Kate walked into my office and went, "You're wearing that?" And I went, "No, I'm not." She went, yeah, you are. I went, oh. She went, "It's for charity." I went, "I can't wear that, Kate." No, I've got tights, you're all right. Oh, God. So I put it on. So two things happened that day. One, we had a distribution company come in with a screen, a new touch screen. And they sent me to the door to answer it with the rep, who then had to step back and look at the sign on the outside to see if she'd come to the right building. What else she did was, I didn't realise that day, but we got a potential new customer coming in. It was a big customer. It was an MOD customer. It would probably end up being our biggest customer if we got them. Now, I wasn't involved in this meeting, because since we've been living our values, I don't get involved in those meetings anymore, because I've got other members of staff and other management team that deal with it. So Kate came and knocked on my door, because there was a meeting going on in the boardroom, and says, "Come on, I need to introduce you to somebody." So she walked me into the boardroom and introduced me to the head of IT of this government organisation. And I shook his hand, and he smiled and laughed, as you would expect, as some of you sniggered when they saw me dressed up in a Dorothy outfit with Toto in my little bag, and my little red slippers that Kate had sewn every single sequin on personally. He shook my hand and he went, "I'm pleased to see your values aren't just written on the wall." Wow. Right, okay. Thank you very much. And I walked out. Well, that day, we raised £6,500 for charity, for me wearing a dress. Now, I have to be honest, if I could earn £6,500 a day for wearing a dress, I'd do that most days. Because, yeah, I still have the outfit. I still have the outfit. So we raised £6,500 for our company charity. We actually won the client. And it was a £115,000 a year MRR contract. The best thing about it is, we were a lot dearer. I don't mean 50 quid, we were a lot dearer in the cost of the contract. We won it because he could see the feel, the vibe in the office. He could see that we were living our values, and our values aligned with their values as a company. Which to me is amazing, because I always thought we'd got to be the same price as everybody. You know, or near as damn it. But we were a lot dearer, and it was a significant amount. Since, we've had another 250 grand of extra project work straight off. There's a load more than that as well, but when I did these slides, it was about 250 grand off this one customer. We've got an industry-leading CSAT score of 99.1%, and we have an 86 response rate on all tickets for our CSAT. So actually, this is a very true score, because 86% of our tickets are being responded to. This isn't just 10 tickets we're having a month responded to. We've won 4 industry awards since we've done our values. And not just awards where I've been up for them, other people at work. Kate was recently nominated for Woman in Tech. Unbelievable. And actually, she didn't put herself into it. Other members of staff I didn't even know when the award nomination come through. And we've lost no staff in 4 years. So since we've done this, we've lost no member of staff. Now, I have to put a little caveat in there. When we did the values, and I showed you me doing the room, there was a couple of people that were actually not... You know, when we got to come up with why we put the name on the list and where we'd seen those people operating at that, you know, where we'd seen that value in action in the business. There was a couple of people. One was a technical director, and one was a telesales guy. They left because they didn't like change. The telesales guy left because he didn't fit into any of the values that were there. Which you could probably say of a lot of telesales people, because they have to be a certain breed to accept the no, 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 go away all day. But he didn't fit those values and he left. My technical director of 10 years left because he didn't like the changes we were doing. He liked to hide. And now there's no hiding. When you've got CSAT being responded on every ticket virtually, there's nowhere to hide. So, from putting your values in and doing it this way, you potentially might lose staff. But actually, in the long run, that's the best thing that can ever happen. Because you'll replace people that fit your values, and your interview questions you'll be asking them, well, what was the last thing you did for a customer? What was the last thing you did personally? What was the last learning you did? It's positive attitude. What positive attitudes have you got? Instead of can you do the job, it's actually, are you going to fit in with the rest of the team? So you can potentially lose people. And we lost 2. But in 4 years, we've employed another 3, and we've lost nobody. Nobody's left. I've never had staff satisfaction as high as it is now. So, that was the year after's outfit. I'm dreading October this year. So I was dressed up as a witch. I don't know what I'm going to get this year. And Kate came into my office yesterday when I ran through the slides with her again, and she went, I've already sorted it, don't worry. I'm not even going to say what I think it might be, because she might change her idea. So, leading by example. Bosses have got to lead by example. So, to recap. Off-site meeting. Simple. Write down 3 model employees. Who in your business have you got that's a model employee? If you haven't got any, you've got bigger problems. But if you have, you're bound to have 3. Write them down. Why are they model employees? Why? You've got to have reasons. And if you can't work out what they are, go on the internet and have a look. There's loads of words there. If you're like me and I'm not a wordsmith, go online, find core values and start picking the words. Narrow it down to between 4 and 7. That's what they say is the optimum for core values. Acres, I think any more people can't remember them. And all of your staff should be able to remember them. Reflect on them for 30 days, which is really hard. Write down all the examples you can of where you've seen those values in action. Call a company meeting and present the values for choosing those. Present them and explain how you've come up with them in the first place, so they don't just think it's your values that you're just putting on the wall. And everyone must live by them. Every person. And anybody that doesn't, you've got to go and deal with it straight away. Like with a hard drive. How many of you could, if you deleted a server or backup failed on one of your customer sites, could you phone the customer and tell them the truth of what's happened if one of your values was think like a customer or something based around honesty? Because if you can't, get rid of them. Choose different values. That's really important. Because as soon as your staff see that you haven't lived those values, that's it. They'll lose trust in you, they won't follow the values, they'll know that you're just full of rubbish and you'll never be able to hold them to account. So choose your values wisely. So 4 key takeaways. Use the values that already exist in your business. They're already there now. You don't have to go and invent them. Use your values to hire, to fire and reward. So we run our business on a book called Traction. If you've heard of Traction, anybody heard of Traction? Quite a few. Not sure of, obviously on air if they've heard of Traction, but Traction is a book by a guy called Gino Wickman. There's 5 books in the series. There's Traction, there's Get a Grip, there's Rocket Fuel, there's How to Be a Good Boss, and there's What the Heck is EOS. And EOS, or Traction, is an entrepreneur's operating system. That's what it stands for. Traction EOS, Entrepreneur's Operating System. There's lots of books out there for how to run a business. But the problem is most of us MSPs or in the IT world, we're relatively small businesses. We might not think we are with 20, 30, 40 staff or 5, but we're relatively small. Most of the books come written from America and they're into, they think a small business is 500 users or 500 employees. And there's lots of other books out there. Rocket Fuel is one by Vern Harnish, but they're just too big. Traction is a great small business book and it's a Bible of how to run your business. And it talks about hiring people based on your values. So once you've got your values, interview people. I mean, we've got a recruiter in the room. He might talk about values later and how they fit in. Don't know, but you should interview people based against your values, not really whether they can do the job or not. Obviously, they've got to have some competency skills in that. But so you hire them and you fire them. So if they can't live your values, people have to go. And reward by them. So the people that are living your values, the Kates and the Daves, and in fact everybody in my business now, they're rewarded based on the values. Live by the values. Staff morale and retention will increase morale. So I have no more knocks on doors. People used to knock on my door, and if they knocked on my door, and they'd normally do it when I was just about to go on holiday, and they'd maybe be leaving, or they'd want more money, or they weren't happy, or they'd want training, and they knew if they knocked on my door, they'd maybe get £1,000 to shut them up for 5 minutes. That doesn't happen anymore. And it hasn't happened for years, which is unbelievable for just living by values, which we've all got, really. And staff retention will increase. I've already said that we've now had no loss of staff in 4 years. If you think about that, just in that, why wouldn't you do it just for that on its own? Never mind winning the customer, you know, and earning more money out of a particular market sector because your values fit. Why wouldn't you do it just to keep your staff happy? Recruitment is hellishly expensive. And the time it takes to onboard them and keep them running can be a lot of money. Owners must lead by example. So for me, that's the biggest and at the start was the hardest thing. Because you've got these values, you now have to live by them. And with the hard drive, I know that was quite a drastic example because I'm sure none of us really drop hard drives around and lose our customers' data. But there's all things that do happen in a business that we really need to be honest with our customers about. And if we can't be honest, I say it for the last time, change your values to ones that you can live with. So, that's where we are with values. Has anybody got any questions? Lost it. Let's take a...
Great presentation, Mark.
Oh, can you turn it? It might need to be on.
We on? Okay. Great presentation, Mark. Thanks for that. I wanted to ask, do you make your customers live by those values?
So,
do you make your customers live by the values?
So the question for everybody else was, so you can hear it, was, do I make my customers live by the values? So, it's a great idea. And I'll try and give the most honest answer that I can to it. That in the perfect world, I would say yes. But we put our values in, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. We've obviously got a lot of customers up until that stage for the last 25 years that we've had. Now, there will be a certain section of those that won't meet our current values. They probably didn't meet any values before, but we took them on because they were a client, or they wanted us and we felt great because they wanted us and we took them on as a client. So, do we interview clients now, and is part of the interview process and part of where we will accept them as a client based on our values? 100%. Would we turn a customer down because they didn't fit our values? 100%. Because the customer that fits your values from day one will be with you for a long, long time. They'll get your skills, they'll get your stack, they'll understand what you're about. They're the perfect customer. So like the MOD firm that our values fit, they're an absolutely stunning customer. We should all go through our customers and grade them A, B, C, D. And our D ones maybe we should get rid of. And the same with our Cs. And we should probably try and change our Bs to be As. But I understand that takes time. Do I have any D customers now? No. Do I have any Cs? No. Not anymore. Do I have some Bs? Maybe. Do I have a lot of As? Yes. But from now on, we wouldn't take a customer on unless they matched our core values, unless we were compatible in the core values. Does anybody else have a question? Martin, hold on, it's a microphone.
How do you engage your staff to live by those values and call out other members of staff that don't?
Okay, I have got an example on the calling out, which I'll say. So I think the biggest thing is when you have your company meeting, explaining to them that this is where the values have come from. Because if you didn't go and find that Kate had took a Prince 2, or Dave Bennington on a Friday afternoon had gone, right, come on guys, we're going to get this done, or Harry hadn't gone and organised with the client that he was going to phone him over a weekend when he wasn't busy. Unless you have those examples and you explain the whole process, to them they're just yours. And that's what a lot of us owners want to do. We want to railroad our staff to get on with the job in hand. And our job as leaders is to lead. It's what we call a leader. It's to manage the staff that are there and show them how this process works and explain it to them so they get buy into it. And as soon as somebody has got buy into it and they understand where they fit, then it's a naturally, like a rolling bush almost, like a snowball, it just gathers constantly. So we don't have to remind people now about our values. They are on the wall in the boardroom. I don't think that they're in the break room on a small sheet, but they've been there for, as I say, 4 or 5 years now. They know the values. Any new member of staff that we have in, we ask one of the most important things for them is for them to see that we're living those values, and if we're not, we need them to come to us and tell us why. So that's what we do with every new member of staff. One of the most important things for them is to look at if we are thinking like a customer. And if we're not, you need to come and tell the management team, because we might be too close to it and too blasé to it and not realise. So if you go through the process, to answer your questions, go through the process, follow that letter by letter, and you'll get naturally buy-in with it. And to give a brief example was, one of the biggest issues that we had was, we've got a kitchen downstairs in my building, 6,000 square feet, and I've got one kitchen downstairs. And I had big issues with upstairs and downstairs. Sales was upstairs and tech was downstairs. And people leaving plates and cups and putting beans in the microwave without any lid on it and exploding in the microwave and leaving it for the next person. I know it sounds stupid because you wouldn't do it at home, or maybe some people would, but they wouldn't. And we got downstairs going, oh, bloody upstairs, they're a nightmare, and upstairs we're going, downstairs are a nightmare. People ended up putting their own plates and crockery in their own drawers, which is just, if you think about it, it's ridiculous. This was before we had the values. So what I did once is I went and cleaned the kitchen within an inch of its life. I polished everything. I did new Dow coring everywhere. I polished the taps. I tidied I got rid of all the junk out of all the cupboards. And I got everybody into the kitchen. I said, right, look at the kitchen. It needs to be this way because it's on the way to the toilets. Customers will come through it. And if they see that we're messy in a Simon Sinek way, they maybe think we're messy at other processes that we have in the business. And what I'm going to do is, if anybody comes into the kitchen and spots that somebody else has made a mess, I'll pay them £10. But what you've got to do is you've got to tell me who they were, and what we'll do is we'll explain it to the business in the huddle in the morning. We have an 8:54 huddle where we get the whole business together and we talk about what's happening in that day. And people are going to me, oh, God, you shouldn't do that. You'll spend thousands. I paid £10 out once, and that was over 4 years ago now. And what it was the telesales guy had left a plate on top of the microwave and he'd gone into the break room to eat. And somebody had come in and gone, oh, he's left that there, right, I'm grassing him up. It was a bit unfair because he hadn't done anything that was messy or really untidy, but I paid the £10 out once and that was it. And the kitchen has been like yours at home. I know yours is tidy because I've seen your house. So yeah, you can get other staff members in a peer group to help the rest of them along. And you might have the odd member that doesn't fit the value, and then that's up to you then. Traction talks about it, GWC calls it, do they get it, do they want it, and have they got the capacity? It's up to you then to explain to them why they don't have that value and how you need to build that into their performance. Okay? Does that answer your question?
Hey, thanks for your presentation, Mark. Is there anything, now that you did it once, is there anything, if you had to go back and do it again, that you learned you might do a little bit differently?
Okay, so the question was now I've done this presentation 4 years ago to the staff and worked my values out, is there anything I'd do differently today? I think that I'd be a bit more humble now. So that thing where I wanted my name to be on the list, because to be fair, you don't want to multiply me in a business. Because without me, I'm a nightmare. You know, I'm a typical MD. Some of you know me in the room, and I am a nightmare. I have ideas every 5 minutes. So you don't want to multiply me. There's not enough hours in the day for the amount of ideas I have. So I'd be a bit more humble. I wouldn't be upset about not having my name on the list. I think my management team, if we were to do it again, the values still sit, and every quarter we look at the values and actually confirm that they are still the values that are in this business. And we've done that so we've done that probably 16, 17 times now over the last 4 years. So I think the values would still stay the same. I think that maybe the staff we'd do more to get the staff more engaged after the event more, to take them seriously. But you have to remember that if you're coming from not have them, you can't expect them to be live in the business 2 minutes later. So the only thing you can do is show them and live them. So we'd probably be a bit more vocal on how we've lived them and how we've showed the values to the staff. I think that's about it, really. Other than the process works, and it's so simple.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Philip?
Oh, you got one there, look. We both need one.
Oh, look at that, eh? Great presentation, Mark. Thanks for that. And I'm a big fan of prawn cocktail crisps in particular, so nice to see them up there. Do you build the values part of the way you're managing the business and your team? Do you build that into appraisals and kind of regular updates and conversations you have with your team, and what methodology do you use for that?
So yes, we do. The values are constantly looked at. And as I said earlier, we run our business based on a book called Traction. So it's our Bible in effect. So it's almost, if it doesn't say it in Traction, we don't do it. And I know in the other peer groups that I'm in, I know there's a lot of IT dealers now that are running Traction. So in quarterly conversations, which we have off-site now. So every quarter, the management team take their employees or their staff off-site and have quarterly conversations with them. There's a thing in Traction called People Analyzer, so which your values are listed across the top and their job functions are listed down the side. And do you see that value is in that job function? And if it's not, then there's a performance-related schedule to get them up to that value. And one of the biggest things is that if someone's not living that value, you can't just have one reason they're not living the value. You have to have at least 3. And the reason for that is because if someone's not living that value and you talk to them about, well, you didn't do this on this occasion, they'll go, oh, that was just then. And if it's 2, they'll go, oh, that's just coincidence. But from 3, it becomes real. So we have had one employee that didn't live one of the values, and when these manager took him to the off-site, he had 10 things, not 3. And at the end of it was the realisation for him going, it's me, isn't it? Because up until that state, he was blaming everybody else. So yes, we constantly are looking at the values and how we can embed them and build the staff up to that level. But be under assurances, if there was a value that we thought we couldn't live with, we'd take it out and we'd do the process again to put a value in that we could. If we thought that none of the staff could live up to think like a customer, for instance, we'd take it out and choose something else. So all the staff now could list all the values straight off. It's took them a while, but they get asked in huddles in the morning now for, give me a value and where you've seen it operated, so they're constantly thinking about it now. Because I believe it's it has transformed our business from having the values set. If that answers your question. But we use Traction as the methodology for doing it.
Hi, Mark. You set the values 4 years ago, and you just mentioned about replacing values if they didn't match what your staff currently believe in. But do you plan to visit your values again in the future to make sure they're still fresh and relevant?
So we visit the values in a yearly conversation. So every year we visit them and see if they're still relevant to us. So if there was a value that we wasn't living, if one of the new employees that comes in said that, you know, positive attitude, nobody has a positive attitude, something like that, and we couldn't live to it as a management team, as a company, and we saw that positive attitude not being used in the business constantly, then we would revisit it and go through the whole process again. So if the values did change, you've got to change, definitely. In the same as, I know that's quite a dramatic thing with a hard drive, and it's great for IT people because we'd all be scared to death if we dropped a hard drive on the floor and it was all the customer's data. But, and that's an extreme example, but there's lots of other things that we could potentially do with, you know, having a positive attitude at work, thinking like a customer. It's, yeah, if they didn't fit, we'd move, we'd certainly would change, because they lose their value then. The power is where you see that value being used in that business, and that's the thing that gets the employee buy-in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, very inspiring presentation from one of the partners online. What they want to know is, what does your lifetime value look like for your customers in comparison to your staff retention because of the values you've set?
What does the financial value?
No, so your staff retention. So what is your average staff retention? Do they stay with you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And how long do your customers stay?
So we've, so I think the longest we've got is 15, and we've got an apprentice, and it's very hard to say because I haven't had anybody leave for 4 years, and the new ones are. The biggest thing I think for me is the fact that staff are happy now. I'm not having the unhappy conversations. I'm not having staff leave to go elsewhere because they don't feel appreciated where they are now. So I don't think having your values is the be-all and end-all of everything. You've got to have your values, yes, but it's just the start of the road to change. So it's not just put your values in and then you can just forget about the rest. You've got to do your performance reports. You've got, with your staff monthly. You've got to have personal development plans for them. You've got to have training plans for them. So that's just a small bit of it. And the first place to start is an obvious one for me, was the values. But that's just a small cog of the whole piece. I haven't really got an answer to how long do staff stay. Because I haven't had anybody leave since we've done this. And that's been 4 years, so.
No, perfect, okay. And then there was one more. Do you use any kind of personality profile or analysis when you recruit new people?
Yes, we do. So we use one guy by a guy called Dr. Larry Little, and it's called Make a Difference. So you can go and do the test online free. Make a difference, and when you do the test, off the top of my head, I think it's 20 questions. So it's the Myers-Briggs type, 16 profile type sort of. But in one of my peer groups, they use this quite extensively, and I've seen Dr. Larry Little speak a couple of times at events. So we're solely bought in on that, and we've been using that for about 5 or 6 years now. And you'll understand, you'll know if you've heard of it because you're either a lion, a camel, a monkey, or a turtle. And that's the 4 profile types. Yeah. And the one word of warning we use in any profiling type is, and I've fell foul to this myself, is that you take the test and you get your staff to take the test. But what do you do with it then? Because you don't really know enough about how to analyse the data that comes off it. So it's not just a thing that the boss can read the book for 5 minutes, go and get everybody to take the test, now all of a sudden everybody's going to be better. So we extensively run it in our business. And in fact, I don't think there's one of the pictures here, but at the back of everybody's desk, there is a little sticker that sticks on the wall or on the back of their monitor, and it says what profile they are. So I'm a lion camel. So I think I'm a 12 lion and I'm a 6 camel. And then you can be a little bit turtle and a little bit, I've forgotten what the other one was now. Monkey. So Dave Bennington that I mentioned there, come on, it's 5 to 5. That's him. He's the Joker. That's what he's about. He's a people person. That's what monkeys are. So whenever we're going to interview somebody, we get them to fill out the test and send us the top 2 results. Because from the top 2 results, we can know more about them than what their CV tells us. And we have moved people around in job positions because of their profile type doesn't match the job role that it would, certain people can be managers and certain people can't. So we use that extensively. So, and we have training sessions on it as well, so we understand.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions in the room? Vince, you got one?
Is the crisp packet still there?
Well, okay, I'd forgotten about the crisp packet actually. So the stories behind that is, I found out only about 6 months ago. My wife picked it up because she was absolutely sick and tired of me coming home and moaning about it. So she picked it up. And I only found out 6 months ago. I thought yes, someone's picked the packet up, and she's gone, oh, that's good, really great. Yeah, it was her. She picked it up to stop me moaning. So, yeah. Any more questions? Anything else?
No? Okay. Martin, one more?
So since you've got your core values, everyone's living by them and stuff, has your customer retention gone up?
We've sacked customers. If that's the word. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it does take I remember David, my FD, being very, very, well, do we really want to sack them because they pay us so much money a month? But the joy in the service department when you get rid of a customer that was that absolute nightmare, the one that always phones up with a sage move on a Friday afternoon late and he's got no... So yes, we've now sacked customers, but has our retention gone up? Yeah, we haven't lost customers that are in our A and B. That they're as close to fitting our values as we can do. Because I think we understand each other better. We understand them, they understand us, and the relationship just works so much better. So, yeah, customer retention has definitely gone up. And we've been very brave to sack people.
Okay, so can we have a round of applause for Mark, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just stay up there for a second.
Okay.
Stay up for a second. Okay, so there's one last question from me.
Okay.
Obviously, we've known each other for a while now, and one of the reasons I asked you in to speak is because you can relate to all of the people who were on the live stream and all of the business owners that are in this room. You've had a struggle in the business in the past, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. It can be bloody tough. It's hard work. Do you find now that you're falling back in love with the business again, or do you enjoy being in the business more now?
Well, there's one thing that's not on the slides, and so before I started this, when the crisp packet was outside the door, I was probably working about 70 hours a week in the business. I can't put it solely down to the values because this was the catalyst. The crisp packet was the catalyst in some of my peer groups, we call it muscle and feel. As a business owner, I've got no real clue why I'm going over there. I'm just going to use my sheer determination and bloody mindedness to get me over there, and there's no rhyme or reason why I'm doing it. And we call that muscle and feel. And that's what I see in a lot of my peer groups is that's what a lot of owners do. And hence working 70 hours a week, because I'd be the type of person at that time was, if you were doing something and you wasn't doing it quickly enough, I'd probably walk over and go, come on,
let me do it for you.
Let me do it. Which of course then diminishes you, which means the next time you've got to do that, you don't ask me, you don't do it.
Yeah,
you know I'm going to walk in and I'm going to do it. So Since then, I'm now down to, I do 26 hours a week. So I finish at 3 o'clock every day, and I finish at 12 o'clock on a Friday because I take my wife out for lunch.
That's why I asked you the question, because me and Mark are friends on Facebook now, and every time I see he's out for lunch or he doesn't work on a Friday and he's on all these lovely holidays, you sound like you're enjoying the business again.
Yeah, and there was a time when I didn't.
Yeah.
There was definitely a time, probably around the same sort of time. You know, I think if you go and read a lot of autobiographies of entrepreneurs that have made it, at some time they've had a real kick in at some time. You know, something's happened to them quite dramatically and they've nearly lost it, and then they've come back and fought it, and then they're suddenly back in love with it again.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was a muscle and feel guy. I thought I knew best, as I said earlier on. I thought I knew the right way, whether it be with a builder or whether it be with my staff. And doing the values was a great thing. Starting to read books was probably one of the best things that I've done, because I hadn't necessarily read any books since school. Janet and John, and as I said, I'm 52 now, so you know it's probably 30 years when I hadn't read a book. Or if it had been a book, it would have been a get-rich-quick type of book.
Yeah.
How to earn money, because I thought that's what it was all about. You know, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs think the same. It's all about the cars, the watches, the houses, the riches that comes from it. But now I'm very comfortable in working 26 hours a week. I'm very comfortable now with walking around the office and going, bye-bye, I'm going. Whereas before I might sneak out.
Yeah. Feeling guilty for leaving early.
Yeah, I mean, I know entrepreneurs that run some decent-sized businesses, and I know one in particular that won't put his receipts in for Costa Coffee because he doesn't want his staff to know that he's at Costa Coffee, because he doesn't want to go into work.
Bless.
He's had enough. And he runs a really decent-sized, he's not in IT, but he runs a decent-sized business. Whereas, you know, it's like me sneaking out and not saying goodbye to the staff, because I thought, oh, I should be here.
Yeah.
I'm the boss, I should be doing more than anybody else. No, not at all. That's what we employ people to.
Yeah.
Employ people cleverer than you. I think Richard Branson's got a really good saying about it. I can't remember what it is now. I'm sure Phil can remember it because he remembers all the sayings. Richard Branson, treat your staff well.
No, it's your staff come first before your customers, isn't it? Because if your staff are happy, then your customers are happy.
Treat your staff good enough to leave, but then pay them good enough to stay.
Something,
it's something like that. He's got a great saying on that, and I'm a great believer in that now.
Yeah.
So I now just manage 3 people. That's my only job, which is really strange. There was new customers in yesterday in the boardroom, and I go and meet them and say hello.
Yeah, and that's it.
And then I turn around and I walk back out.
And that's what your team's there for, though.
But a lot of us don't do that. Hence the working 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I'm really comfortable with working 26 hours a week. I'm very, very happy with my life at this moment in time. Thank you.
Well, good for you, honestly. You're a true inspiration. Well done. Give him a round of applause. And just to wrap up this session, do you know we have another Mentori event that's happening in October? So would you mind dressing up for the next event? I think we should do a charity sponsorship to get him to dress up in October.
So I'd like to thank HP and Mentori and TechData for inviting me here today. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, thank you so much, Mark.